Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from the Tony Tonkin Show. Glad you could be with me to have this conversation about something which concerns me, namely in this case, race. How race has governed our lives over the last couple of weeks. And I must confess, race is an issue for many people in our community on a daily, minute-by-minute basis, in fact. But it is the issues that are happening in Alice Springs, the fact that we now have the Albanese government seeking to have a yes vote for the voice to Parliament, and that has the right-wing media completely up in arms about what to do about race. As a result, we have Sky News, the little-known network which is sponsored by and funded by the Murdoch press, going all out to tell us that race is a problem which they themselves think they would like to have a solution for, but never offer any solutions whatsoever. In fact, what they would try and do is to divide us as much as they can so that their own racist prejudices can be expressed in the most dynamic and unfortunate manner. As a result of that, we have people like Bolt, Credlin, and the rest of that disgusting crew on Sky talking about race, continually letting us know that they have the solutions to the problem. Now, what has happened is that we had Australia Day and there were lots of rallies in relation to it being referred to as Survival Day, and Indigenous people talking about their experiences around that and what they would like to see. And then we have a whole host of other people saying, well, Australia Day should just simply stay Australia Day. I just can't understand why, frankly, we can't have 2 days, or why we can't have one day that just says it was an invasion day. And in the meantime, there are people crying out for us to identify each other as patriots, and if we agree with one side, we're a patriot. If we disagree with them, we're not. So, and I hate that term. It seems so Americanized to me that it is disgusting to think that we see ourselves as either one or the other. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play some clips from of Andrew Bolt in this first instance and then Peter Credlin in the next, talking about race. And it's interesting, when we have a look at this particular Bolt issue, at the bottom there he's got the Bolt report, Truth in a Wake Storm. Now, in a woke storm, far from awake. It's a woke storm. And so there's this continual focus on wokeness and what that means, and it's a slur that's directed at anybody who has a counter view to theirs. And that I think we need to find a way to confront this bizarre behaviour that the right have in disagreeing with anything that may be progressive, that is helping people to understand that there are different ways of viewing certain problems, that we can choose to be respectful, mindful of the language we use and how that language is impacting others in our community, particularly those that are the most disadvantaged. So we need to find a way to be able to fight back, I think, against these right-wing, divisive views of the world. And we need to be able to push back sometimes, I think, rather aggressively about the clowns like Andrew Bolt and Murray and others that sit on the right, and a whole lot of other people that write, particularly for the Murdoch press. They're spreading a version of their own version of racism, in effect, by declaring themselves to be privileged white people who see this as a fight that they need to have because their views are being challenged in an extreme fashion by fashion, not fascism, fashion, by the left and those people who are just seeking to have some dignity in their lives. And those on the left are endeavouring to support that. But I think that we need to find ways by which we can push back. And this is why I have my YouTube channel. It's to push back against these people. I know I don't have all that many people connecting, but this is about finding a way to push back against all those people that have counter and different views. And look, I know that sometimes my views may appear to be a bit radical. I don't mind people coming at me for the views that I have. I get it. I'm happy to listen to them. I'm happy to consider some of the arguments that they might have. Throw them at me. Let me know what you think. And make sure, though, in particular, if you're going to do that, that you are subscribing to my YouTube channel so that you can get all the information that you don't probably want, but get it from me nevertheless. So I'm just going to launch into Andrew Bolt, and you can listen to the crap that he has to say, and I'll talk about it as we go through it.
Labor's planned voice to Parliament. I mean, finally, we have a new organisation to fight this dangerous move. It includes a former Labor minister.
I must say that it's interesting that you should say now we now have an organisation to fight this dangerous move. And so here we are. Bolt's telling us straight off that this is an insidious thing that's happening. It's dangerous, but it doesn't... I still don't think, even though I listened to Bolt many times, I still don't think he kind of is able to express the dangerousness that sits around it.
And I'll ask him why he's taking on his old party. And boy, do we need more people like him with the guts to stand up to this. I mean, the way now that we're being...
No, Andrew, we actually need more people like me and other peoples to make a stand against people like you.
Divided into tribes. I mean, just yesterday, in multicultural Melbourne, you had Sikhs and Indians belt each other in a brawl over creating an independent Sikh state in India. And of course, here in Australia, we have Aboriginal activists wanting independent Aboriginal states. And it's...
You know, that may be true, but that's not a movement, Andrew. That's just something you've heard on Reddit or somewhere else, or on 4chan or somewhere else. You know, like that is not a movement here in Australia, and it just is offensive to think that you should even raise
this
that.
Kind of ethnic hatred that was also whipped up so reckless.
I think this is amazing that he's now talking about ethnic hatred, and he's propagating the same shit over and over again by highlighting that. Well, firstly, that video he just showed of the Sikhs fighting each other, I didn't see that. I haven't seen that. Don't know where he dragged it from. Don't even know whether it's real, for that matter. But apparently, according to him, it happened. But I'm not always sure that I can be guaranteed that what he tells us is factual. But you know, this notion, I guess, that he is continually pressing the point that racism is something that is isolating the white community, and those that are privileged, such as, you know, white privileged people like he, Credlin, Murray and others, are all trying to, or endeavouring to, spend a heck of a lot of time dividing the nation rather than trying to find ways by which we can all work together.
Obviously, last Thursday's marches against Australia Day. I know that's last week's news, but here's the thing. Looking afterwards, what shocked me is that no journalist that I know showed you just how ugly it actually got.
Maybe that's because journalists weren't concerned about this crap that you're concerned about, because a lot of journalists aren't interested in creating the divide, Andrew, that you seem to want to focus on incessantly.
And in Melbourne, again, particularly. It was blogger Sam McClelland who tipped me off. And I've now found video that the Melbourne rally organisers put on their website. And it is appalling. I want you to watch it and ask why no one was charged with hate speech or making threats to kill.
Now, I do need to say that when I watched this video, there is nothing in it that I potentially, or let's put it this way, I don't agree with any of the behaviours that were expressed at all in this video. I think if you're going to, you know, go out into the public and call everybody F and C's and all that sort of stuff and demonstrate your anger in that way. I just find that extremely unhelpful. And I don't think for 1 minute you're helping your cause. And I'd just like to say that the first guy that he shows that comes up with no shirt on and everything, I don't know for certain, but my guess is he was either high or drunk. And he gave, so the whole thing gives the whole push towards dealing with and managing prejudice, particularly systemic prejudice, in a way which is unhelpful for the cause. And so Andrew wants to show us this, to let us know that this is the face of Indigenous people in Australia. So he's telling us that these people are the types of people who are representing Indigenous people. Well, they're not. Their behaviour is atrocious. The way they speak is revolting. And certainly, I had to agree with Andrew. I don't agree with any of that. The point is that we need to be aware that Andrew's raising this because he wants to highlight the negative, the bad side, the terrible side, I think, that sits on the other side of the fence, which is the Indigenous side. And I think this is totally unfair because they are a minority. There was a lot of crowd cheering and yelling and doing other things, I guess, that were caught up in the moment. But it's a bad look, and Andrew, unfortunately, decided to focus on it, of course.
And particularly why no journalists there noticed or cared enough to report it. I'll show you just two clips. Here's one of the invited speakers at the rally being given the warm welcome by the MC, and every bleep you then hear is either the F word or the C word, and check the crowd's reaction.
The next speaker is going to be Rocky Harrison!
No idea who this dude is, incidentally.
Rocky Harrison here. Been in and out of the jail system. While I was in there,
let's be proud of that.
Black Deaths there. I seen these drunk screws treat us black fellas like shit. Dang it, dogs. You know who ended on you like maggots?
I love the way every second word's a swear word,
He
too.
was killed by these over here.
And clearly angry at the police. I must say, it's fun watching. They've got an Auslan person sitting there doing their sign language, and I can't take her seriously because every second word is F and C. So I'm wondering what she's doing with her hands to express what he's saying, and she's trying to remain very professional, but it kind of ain't working to her. So just watch her for a moment. I think it's quite funny. I don't know what she's doing there.
The police! Your prison!
Effing white maggots, you effing dogs.
I think,
Kill you.
Andrew,
I mean, the racism, the hatred, the threats are also...
Andrew, I think they might have referred, with all due respect, buddy, I think they might have been referring to you specifically when they were referring to, perhaps the white maggots that they, because, that I wouldn't use that terminology specifically to describe you, mate, but I think they might.
appalling. But this crowd cheered it. And if a white person said this stuff about black people and police, I bet you they'd be charged.
Now, that is interesting, isn't it? Because that's the racism right there and then. Man, Andrew, you just identified the racism that is all about you. Certainly, if it was on the other side of the fence, if we were looking at it differently, if a white person had said that, so this is this divisive stuff, They're having a. It's an outdoor thing. They're the minority having a shot at the majority as they see it. And the language was crappy. They should not have said what they did. They did. It's not that big a deal, mate. You're soft, man. You are so friggin' soft that you've allowed yourself to get sucked into this. You're a snowflake. That's the best way I could put it. Probably to use your terms. You're a snowflake. And he's offended, poor bastard, really seriously.
The video would be on high rotation on the ABC as evidence of our wicked racism.
Oh, we have to refer to the
no one
ABC.
even reported what you just saw. Or that MC's hatred of Australians simply celebrating Australia Day.
Well, the ones celebrating with your poxy little barbecues, whatever the you do on this day, I hope you choke on your lamb chop.
I think it's fair enough to accept that there are people in the Indigenous community who are angry. Now, I work with a number of Indigenous people around child protection, and they haven't got a voice, a megaphone, or whatever to be able to talk about their problems like these people have. But I'm sure that some of them who are generally quite I'm trying to think of another word to describe a lot of them. Sensible, rational type of people, but are emotionally disturbed by having their children removed. I'm sure that if they had a megaphone and could stand up in front of hundreds of people and say what they want to say, they would use similar language like this to describe it. But when confronted by the system itself, they behave a little bit differently, thank God. But this is an opportunity for people to let go of how they're feeling and the things that are concerning them, and to just spray. And they've been allowed to do that. Why wouldn't they not be allowed to do that? You know, they're entitled to do that. Andrew doesn't seem to understand that if you're white and you make statements about, why would you? Well, see, this is the point. Why would a white person make statements about Indigenous people in the same way that Indigenous people make statements about the white system that suppresses them? Because there's no Aboriginal people are not the ones in power. They're not the ones with authority. They're powerless in all of this. They rely on legislation and other stuff which is developed, again, by white people to tell them how it is that they should live their lives. It's completely reversed for them. So I wouldn't expect white people. What are white people going to yell at Aboriginal people about? Well, we'll do Credlin in a moment and we'll find out about what they're saying about Alice Springs. You know? Which is about white people yelling at black people. That's what that's about. But they don't get it because they have no sense of their own sense of superiority and so on.
Yes.
As I said, this video
I hope you enjoyed that, Andrew.
Organisers,
Jesus
Warriors
Christ.
of the Aboriginal Resistance. They seem proud of it. Now, this organisation, this is very initial, by the way, spells out war, has as a leader the sister of Greens Senator Lydia Thorpe. And Thorpe also gave a speech at the start of this same rally. And this speech was also racist and also dangerously inflammatory. But once again, what a mystery. I cannot find where the ABC reported this particular vile rant by this Greens senator waving a war stick and preaching war.
Now, I want to say, before we get to Lydia, that I actually don't like her either. So I'm sitting here thinking, you know, okay, Andrew, there are certain things that that I guess you say, almost 99% of the things you say, Andrew, I don't agree with. But on this occasion, I don't agree with the language she's using either. I think there needs to be a way by which we can say, okay, Both sides have got a point. Both sides have got an argument. But let's not, And then this seems rather inconsequential. I know. I don't even know if I should say it, but Bolt's name is Bolt, a bolt, like a bolt of lightning. I could argue that's an aggressive name, Bolt. I know you can have a bolt on a door, you can run away from somebody, you can bolt in that sense, but he's an A bolt. And I whenever I think of his name, I always think of a lightning bolt, something that's destructive. And he's criticising the fact they've got an acronym that says war. Big friggin' deal. But for him, it's an issue, apparently. So let's go and see what Lydia has to say. Don't agree with any of this stuff either.
This is a war! They are still killing us!
No, I agree with that.
They are still stealing our babies!
No, definitely agree with that. So there are some things I do agree with.
They are killing our men! And they are still raping our women!
A politician in our federal parliament saying this is war? Seriously? And if it is war, what is she expecting the people she's talking to do?
I don't know.
The racism
Andrew, what is it? What is it that you're trying to say that you're expecting you to do? Like, what are you doing that's offering any great insight into any of this apart from playing these bloody videos that is about criticising certain individuals for the way they talk and the way they behave? I agree. I don't have to agree with the language and the behaviour, but I kind of agree with the sentiment, I guess. People are angry and they're talking about their anger. I'm a therapist. God, I just live in that sort of world anyway. So it's an appropriate thing to be able to do. So, bugger off, Andrew.
That's supposedly killing Aborigines and raping their women. That thought clearly means whites, yet last week, for instance, 14 of the 16 intensive care beds in Alice Springs were filled with Aboriginal women who'd been bashed, and not by white racists. Try their partners.
Right, so let's step into the realm of real racism. So we've gone from a Bolt talking about the fact that they're using bad language to insult police and politicians and everybody else, and someone's got an acronym that says war. And that's fighting against us. So this is what you do if you're a racist. So you turn it back on... Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that this is not a problem within Indigenous communities, because we know that it is, right? Get it. We're all aware of that. Andrew, you're not telling us anything that is new. Nothing of this is new. The reason why you're telling us is that you want to make it about Indigenous stuff. You want to make it about domestic violence, mental health issues. We know those problems exist. I want you, Andrew... I want you to be able to tell us what your solution is to this problem. Not that it exists. We know that it exists. So it's now become about Aboriginal people against Aboriginal people. That's what he wants us to hear. That's what's important to him. Not about white supremacy, not about his racist views, because he's a privileged white dick. He wants us to make it about Aboriginal violence against Aboriginal violence. So, and we know that that's a problem. It's a problem in the white community about white violence towards white violence. It's about men's violence towards men. These are real issues that sit in our community. But he wants to isolate that one issue because that feeds his racist view of the world, and particularly Indigenous people. He's not empathetic. Not for a moment can we suggest that Andrew Bolt has any degree of empathy for Indigenous people. Just doesn't exist. If it did exist, he'd be talking about solutions to problems rather than just focusing on the problem all the time. That's the only argument he's got. This is the problem. He's not even a reporter. He's not reporting this as a problem. He's telling us over and over again. He's feeding this narrative all the time about the degree to which this is a problem. And it's painful to watch.
Murdered Aboriginal women were more likely to have been killed by their partners. So how did Thorpe turn all that into some white war?
That same argument is used for white people, man. You know, this is frustrating. Let's face it. I'm frustrated. You know, because there's no balance around all of this. That, you know, white men are killing white women on average a bit over one a week in this country. You know? It's horrific. It's horrific. Why aren't you talking about that? I've got no idea, you know, because, you know, you're a freaking clown, man.
What? Against Aborigines, they're killing our people. I mean, seriously, this is sick. It is dangerous.
It is sick. It is dangerous across our communities, all communities, not just Indigenous people. The fact that you're highlighting it amongst Indigenous people is a horrific notion. I had no idea I was so passionate about this until just now, until watching it again and realising what a clown this man is.
Racist, and I couldn't believe the hypocrisy today of another Greens MP, Sarah Hanson-Young, not saying a word about any of what I've just shown. Not a word about this race.
Okay, now, I'm a progressive, but I'm not a politician, right? But I'm saying it. I'm highlighting your hypocrisy, you know? The fact that you have one rule for Indigenous people, but you can't look at the overall problem around domestic violence, mental well-being, kids being removed, whatever it is, you know? You don't see that. You're just seeing this one sort of focus that you've got, which is about your version of race, and that's all that's important. I don't know, there's only a little bit to go, so.
But claiming that the real racists are people against Labor's plan for a voice to Parliament, like me.
All right, so at the end of this, we have an issue around the voice. So, and this is where all this stuff winds up. When we watch Credlin in a moment, you'll see what I mean if you can put up with it. But, you know, it's really about let's focus at the end of the day on the voice, because that is what this is about, the voice and racism and other stuff.
Hey, okay, you know, we're against this advisory parliament just for Aborigines. We're racist for saying that dividing us by race is racist, for warning that this is encouraging a kind of race resistance.
The way you do it, man, yeah. That's exactly what we're saying. You've hit the nail on the head. Oh, my God, I agree with Andrew Bolt that, yeah, you're making it about race. You're the one making it about race. I don't want to say that again. But, Bolt, you're the one making this about race, not the other side. The other side wants to rectify the problem, have got a solution that will help. And I could talk about the voice. I'll do that in another video at another time. But, you know, I'm over it.
Resentment and hate. We're racist for saying that Aborigines, look, they already have a voice to
Yes, you are.
Parliament, just like all the...
No, they don't. They have 11 members in Parliament. They have just over 4%. I looked it up the other day. 4% representation, right? Which is about their proportion of population for Indigenous people, right? So they're on target, fine. But that's not what the voice is about. It is not about the representation of those elites who get into Parliament, right? I think there's this whole thing too about which we need to look at some point, which is about Indigenous elite and what the Indigenous people are saying in there. So the Indigenous people are divided as well. I'm going to have a conversation about that later. But I think that's another concern, you know, whether it be Mundine or Lydia or whoever it might be that sits on that elitist side, wanting something that they're never ever going to get, and and destroying the voice as a result of their objections. So, if you're still with me after 30 minutes, congratulations, you've done very, very well. I'm going to have a break, and then I'm going to get back, and we're going to talk about in the next video about my friend, my cohort, most sensational young woman that I've ever met, Peter Credlin. So we'll have a chat about her shortly. Take care, everybody. I'll see you later on in the next video. Take care. Bye. Look after yourselves.